I married her in a small chapel in Naga City. She cried when I put the ring on her finger. I believed every tear. For 18 months, I called her my wife. I sent money to her family. I sponsored her visa application. Then a lawyer called me from Manila. He said his client, her real husband, wanted to discuss custody of their 2 children. I didn't even know she had kids. I was sitting across from Eleanor at this beachside restaurant in Camarines Sur, watching her laugh at something I'd just said. The sound of her laughter made everything else disappear. The ocean, the other diners, the waiter hovering nearby. It was just her, just that smile. I'm 59 years old. I've been divorced for 6 years. And I haven't felt this alive since I was 30. You're always making me laugh, Rodney, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Her fingers were soft and warm. I feel so happy when I'm with you. I looked down at our hands together and felt something I thought I'd never feel again. Hope. Real, actual hope. Not the fake kind you tell yourself about when you're lying in bed alone on a Saturday night. I'm the lucky one, I said. I still can't believe you're here with me. She smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes. Life has been so hard for me, Rodney. You don't know how hard. I squeezed her hand. Tell me. She looked out at the water. My family, they struggle so much. My mother is sick. My father, he drinks. I work at the government office, but the salary is so small. Some months I don't know how we will eat. My chest tightened. I wanted to fix everything for her. You don't have to worry anymore, I said. I'm here now. She looked back at me, and her eyes were wet. You mean that? I mean it. We'd met 3 months earlier through a mutual friend back in Columbus. His name was Gary, and he'd spent 2 years in Manila teaching English. He'd shown me Eleanor's profile on Facebook one night when we were having beers at his place. She's a nice girl, Rodney. Works hard. Comes from a good family. You should talk to her. I was skeptical at first. I'm not the kind of guy who does online dating, especially not international. But Gary kept pushing, and finally I sent her a message. Just a simple hello. She wrote back within an hour. We started chatting every night, then video calls. Then I booked a flight to the Philippines. That was 2 months ago, my first visit. She met me at the airport in Manila, and when I saw her in person for the first time, I felt like a teenager again. She was beautiful. Not just her face, but the way she moved, the way she spoke. She made me feel like I mattered, like I was someone worth knowing. Now, on my second visit, sitting at this restaurant, with the sun setting behind her, I knew what I wanted. Eleanor, I said, my voice shaking a little. I want to marry you. She froze. Her hand went still under mine. What? I want to marry you. I want you to come back to Columbus with me. I want us to build a life together. She pulled her hand away and covered her face. At first I thought I'd made a mistake, that I'd moved too fast. But then I heard her crying. Rodney, I can't believe you're saying this. It's true. I love you. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I love you too, so much. So is that a yes? She laughed through her tears and nodded. Yes. Yes. Of course, yes. I stood up and walked around the table. I pulled her to her feet and kissed her right there in front of everyone. People clapped. I didn't care. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I had a future. I felt reborn. That night, we walked along the beach, holding hands. She talked about what our life would be like in America. I will cook for you every day, she said. Filipino food. You will love it. I already love it, I said. She stopped walking and turned to face me. Rodney, I need to tell you something. My heart sank. What? My family. They will need help. My mother's medicine is expensive. And my younger brother, he is trying to go to college. Don't worry about that, I said quickly. I'll help. Whatever you need. She hugged me tight. You are a good man. I am so lucky. I held her and stared out at the dark ocean. I told myself this was real. This wasn't some fantasy. This was my second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. The chapel in Naga City was small and simple. White walls, wooden pews, a single stained glass window behind the altar. It wasn't much, but it was perfect. Eleanor walked down the aisle in a simple white dress she'd bought at a local shop for 2,000 pesos. Her mother and 2 aunts sat in the front row. Her father didn't come. He's out of town, Eleanor had told me the night before. Working. I didn't push it. I figured every family had its complications. I stood at the altar in a white button-down shirt and khaki pants. I didn't have a suit, and Eleanor said she didn't care. "I just want to be your wife," she'd whispered when we were planning everything. The priest was an older man with kind eyes. He spoke in Tagalog first, then switched to English for my benefit. Eleanor and I held hands while he talked about love and commitment and partnership. I barely heard him. I was too busy staring at her. When it was time for the vows, Eleanor's voice cracked. "I promise to love you, Rodney, to take care of you, to be loyal to you always." I repeated my vows, my own voice shaking. "I promise to love you, Eleanor, to protect you, to give you the life you deserve." We exchanged rings, simple gold bands I'd bought in Manila for $300. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," I leaned in and kissed her softly. She tasted like tears. After the ceremony, we had a small reception at a restaurant nearby. I'd paid for everything: the chapel rental, the flowers, the food, the photographer. Altogether, it was about $3,000. I didn't care. It was the happiest day of my life. Eleanor's mother came up to me during the reception. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. "Thank you," she said in broken English. "You are good man. You take care of my daughter." "I will," I promised. One of Eleanor's aunts, Tita Erlinda, pulled me aside later. She was younger than Eleanor's mother, maybe in her 50s. She had a nervous energy about her. "Excuse me, sir," she said. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Did you check Eleanor's papers? Her documents?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Her legal papers. Her birth certificate. Her status." I didn't understand. "Her passport?" "I've seen it. Everything's fine." She looked like she wanted to say more, but then Eleanor appeared at my side. "Tita? What are you talking about?" Eleanor asked, her voice sharp. Tita Erlinda's face went pale. "Nothing. I was just congratulating your husband." Eleanor smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, Tita. We need to go cut the cake now." She pulled me away before I could ask any more questions. "What was that about?" I asked. "My aunt is just old-fashioned. She worries too much." "About what?" Eleanor stopped walking and looked up at me. "Rodney, can we not talk about this today? Today is our wedding day. I just want to be happy." I felt guilty for pushing. "You're right. I'm sorry." She kissed me on the cheek. "Come on. Let's enjoy our day." After the reception, we drove to a small beachfront cottage I'd rented for the week. It was nothing fancy, but it had a view of the ocean and a bed big enough for 2. That first night as a married couple, Eleanor was quiet. We lay in bed together, the sound of the waves outside. "Are you okay?" I asked. She turned to face me. "I'm perfect. You saved me, Rodney. You really did." "Saved you from what?" She kissed me instead of answering. We spent the next week in that cottage. Eleanor was affectionate and loving. Every morning she made me coffee. Every night she held me while we watched the sun set. I felt like the luckiest man in the world. But there were moments, small moments, where something felt off. Like when I tried to take a picture of her one morning and she turned away. "I don't like photos," she said. Or when I asked about her father and she changed the subject. "He's not important. You're my family now." I told myself every marriage had secrets. Every family had complications. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was overthinking everything. I told myself I was finally happy. And for that 1 week, I believed it. I flew back to Columbus on a Tuesday morning. Eleanor stood at the airport gate crying. "I'm going to miss you so much," she said, clinging to me. "I'll start the visa process as soon as I get home," I promised. "You'll be with me before you know it." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I'll wait for you, Rodney. No matter how long." The flight home was the longest 14 hours of my life. I kept replaying every moment of the wedding, every conversation we'd had. I couldn't stop smiling. When I got home to my empty apartment in Columbus, I didn't even feel lonely. I had a wife now. I had a future. The next morning I called an immigration lawyer. Her name was Susan Chen, and she came highly recommended. Spousal visas can take anywhere from 8 to 12 months, she told me, sometimes longer. What do I need to do? We'll need to file a petition, provide proof of your relationship, financial documents showing you can support her, and quite a bit of paperwork. It's going to cost about $4,000 in legal fees and filing costs. I didn't hesitate. Let's do it. That same day, I wired Eleanor $500. She'd told me before I left that she needed help with rent. I'm staying with my mother right now, but I need to find my own place, she'd said. It's too crowded here. I sent the money through Western Union. She called me as soon as she picked it up. Rodney, thank you so much. You don't know what this means to me. You're my wife now, I said. What's mine is yours. Over the next few weeks, we video called every night. Eleanor always looked tired. Work is so stressful, she'd say. My boss is terrible. You won't have to work there much longer, I reminded her. Soon you'll be here with me. She smiled. I can't wait. I started sending her money every month. $800, then $1,000, then $1,200. She said it was for rent, for food, for her mother's medication. I didn't question it. I wanted to help. I wanted to be a good husband. But things started to change. Small things at first. She'd miss a video call. I'm sorry, she'd text. I was helping my cousin with something. Or I'd call and she'd sound distracted. I could hear voices in the background, laughter. Who's there? I'd ask. Just my cousins. We're having dinner. Can I say hi? They don't speak English, Rodney. It's okay. One night, I called at our usual time. She didn't answer. I tried again an hour later. Nothing. I sent her a text. Everything okay? She didn't respond until the next morning. I'm so sorry. My phone died and I couldn't find my charger. It sounded reasonable, but something about it bothered me. Over the next 6 months, I sent Eleanor nearly $8,000. I also paid for her to take English classes, $300 a month. I bought her a new phone because she said hers was broken. That was another $500. Every time I sent money, she thanked me. You're so good to me, Rodney. I love you so much. But her voice started to sound different, less warm, more automatic, like she was reading from a script. One night, I brought it up. Eleanor, you seem distant lately. There was a long pause. What do you mean? I don't know. You just seem like you're not really there when we talk. Rodney, are you serious right now? Her voice went sharp. I work all day. I take care of my mother. I'm dealing with the visa process. And you think I'm not trying hard enough? No, that's not what I meant. It sounds like you don't trust me. I do trust you. I just miss you. If you miss me, then maybe you should stop questioning everything I do. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm just being paranoid. Her voice softened. It's okay. I know long distance is hard, but we just have to be patient, okay? Okay. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling like an idiot. She was right. I was overthinking everything. She was under a lot of stress. The last thing she needed was me making it worse. So I did what I always did. I sent her more money, and I told myself everything was fine. It was a Thursday night when things started to unravel. We were on a video call, and Eleanor mentioned someone I'd never heard of. My brother borrowed my phone today, she said casually. I paused. Your brother? Yeah. You have a brother? She looked confused. I told you about him. No, you didn't. You told me you had a younger brother in college, but you never mentioned another one. She waved her hand dismissively. He's my half-brother, from my father's side. He doesn't live with us. Okay, I didn't push it, but it bothered me. How do you forget to mention a brother? A few days later, she sent me a message. Rodney, I need to ask you for something. My heart sank. What is it? My mother is sick. She needs to go to the hospital. The bill is $500. Of course, I'll send it today. Thank you. You're saving us. I sent the money that afternoon, but this time I asked for a receipt. Can you send me a picture of the hospital bill? Just so I can keep track of expenses for the visa paperwork. There was a long pause before she responded. Rodney, are you treating me like a liar now? No, I just thought it would be helpful for documentation. I can't believe you're asking me this. After everything I've been through. After everything we've been through. Eleanor, I'm not accusing you of anything. It feels like you are. Do you think I'm stealing from you? No. Then why do you need a receipt? I felt myself caving. You're right. I'm sorry. Forget I asked. You really hurt me, Rodney. I know. I'm sorry. I sent the money. I never saw a receipt. A week later, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I called Eleanor at 9 p.m. her time. The phone rang 3 times, then someone picked up. Hello? It was a man's voice, deep, young. I froze. Hello? Who is this? The line went dead. I called back immediately. This time Eleanor answered. Hey baby, she said, her voice bright, too bright. Who was that? I asked. Who was what? A man just answered your phone. Oh, that was my cousin. He borrowed my phone for a second. Why? I don't know, Rodney. Why are you interrogating me? I'm not interrogating you. I'm just confused. Well, it's not a big deal. He needed to make a call, and his phone was dead. Okay, but it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay at all. A few nights later, I couldn't sleep. I opened Facebook and started scrolling. I don't know why. I wasn't looking for anything specific, but then I saw it. An old photo of Eleanor from 2019. She was at a party, smiling, holding a drink, and next to her was a man. His arm was around her waist. The caption read, Eleanor and Rico, best night ever. She was wearing a ring. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I sent it to her. Who is this? She didn't respond right away. When she finally called, her voice was cold. Are you stalking me now? I'm not stalking you. I saw a photo. That's Rico. He was a friend. You're wearing a ring. It's a fake ring, Rodney. We were joking around. It doesn't look like a joke. What do you want me to say? That I've never had a life before you? That I've never had friends? No, I just want to understand. There's nothing to understand. Rico is nobody. He's in the past. You're my husband. Then why are you so defensive? Because you're acting crazy. You're checking my Facebook photos from years ago. You're accusing me of lying. I can't do this anymore. My chest tightened. Eleanor, wait. No. I need space. I'll call you when I'm ready. She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. I felt sick. I felt stupid. I felt like I was losing my mind. But I also felt something else. Fear. Fear that if I pushed too hard, she'd leave. Fear that I'd end up alone again. So when she called me the next day, I apologized. I'm sorry. You're right. I was out of line. Thank you for saying that, she said softly. I love you, Rodney, but you have to trust me. I do. I trust you. And I told myself I meant it. The email came on a Tuesday morning. I was drinking coffee when my phone buzzed. It was from Susan Chen, my immigration lawyer. I'm sorry to inform you that Eleanor's visa application has been denied. I read the words 3 times before they sank in. Denied. I called Susan immediately. What happened? She sighed. The officer reviewed your case and determined there wasn't sufficient evidence of relationship authenticity. What does that mean? It means they're not convinced your marriage is legitimate. They flagged inconsistencies in the documentation. My heart was pounding. What inconsistencies? The marriage certificate you provided, it's not registered with the Philippine Statistics Authority. There are also gaps in your communication records, and Eleanor's employment history doesn't match what she listed in her application. I don't understand. We got married. We have a certificate. Rodney, was your marriage registered legally in the Philippines? I don't know. Eleanor handled all of that. There was a pause. You need to talk to her. I hung up and called Eleanor. She answered on the first ring. What's wrong? The visa got denied. What? Why? They said our marriage isn't legitimate, that there are inconsistencies. She exploded. This is your fault, Rodney. You didn't give them enough proof. Susan said the marriage certificate isn't registered. That's because your lawyer didn't file it correctly. This is on you. I felt like I'd been punched. Eleanor, I did everything Susan told me to do. Well, it wasn't enough. Now what are we supposed to do? We can reapply, Susan said. How much will that cost? Another $4,500 in legal fees. She went quiet. Then she said, You need to fix this, Rodney. I will, I promise. And I need money to prepare better documents. I need to hire a lawyer here in the Philippines. How much? $2,000. I closed my eyes. Okay, transfer it today. We don't have time to waste. I sent the money that afternoon. Over the next week, I kept asking Eleanor to send me the documents the Philippine lawyer was preparing. He's still working on them, she'd say. Can I at least talk to him? He doesn't speak English. Eleanor, I just want to see what we're submitting. Do you not trust me? Is that what this is? I just want to make sure everything is right this time. Fine. I'll send them when they're done. She never sent them. Around the same time, my friend Tom called me. Tom and I had worked together for 20 years before I retired. He'd spent a year in Manila, back in the 90s. Hey man, he said, I heard you got married. Congratulations. Thanks. Filipino girl, right? Yeah. There was a pause. Rodney, I need to tell you something. And I'm saying this as your friend. What? Some of these women, they have whole other lives. Boyfriends, husbands, kids. They're good at hiding it. I felt my jaw clench. Eleanor's not like that. I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying be careful. I've seen guys get taken for everything. I appreciate your concern, Tom, but you don't know her. You're right. I don't. Just promise me you'll keep your eyes open. I will. But I didn't. Instead, I stopped answering Tom's calls. I told myself he didn't understand. He was cynical. He'd been burned, and now he thought every woman was a scammer. Eleanor wasn't like that. She loved me. She was just stressed because of the visa denial. She was just frustrated. That's all. I sent her another $1,000 the next week, and another $1,200 the week after that. Every time I sent money, the knot in my stomach got tighter, but I didn't stop. Because stopping would mean admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. That maybe, just maybe, Tom was right. The call came on a Friday afternoon. I was at the grocery store, picking up milk and bread, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Manila area code. Hello? Is this Mr. Rodney Fletcher? The voice was male, professional, with a slight Filipino accent. Yes. Who's this? My name is Attorney Benito Santos. I'm calling from Manila. I represent a client named Rico de Vera. I stopped walking. I don't know anyone by that name. Mr. de Vera has requested a meeting to discuss custody arrangements for his children with Eleanor Domingo. My blood went cold. What children? There was a pause. I'm sorry. Are you not aware that Eleanor has 2 children? No. I see. Well, Mr. de Vera is the father of Eleanor's 6-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son. He and Eleanor have been married since October 2017. The grocery basket fell from my hand. Oranges rolled across the floor. That's not possible. I have their marriage certificate in front of me, Mr. Fletcher. I can send you a copy if you'd like. She's married to me. I understand this must be confusing. Perhaps it's best if we arrange a call with all parties present. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. People were staring at me. I left the basket on the floor and walked out of the store. I sat in my car and called Eleanor. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called 15 times. On the 16th try, she answered. Rodney, stop calling me. I'm busy. I just got a call from a lawyer in Manila. Silence. Eleanor? What did he say? Her voice was flat. He said his client is your husband. He said you have 2 kids. More silence. Eleanor, talk to me. It's not what you think. Then what is it? Rico and I, we're separated. We've been separated for years. You never told me you were married. I didn't think it mattered. We're getting divorced. You said you were getting divorced, or you are divorced? We're filing for annulment. When? Soon. Eleanor, do you have kids? She started crying. Yes. I felt like I was going to throw up. How many? 2, a daughter and a son. How old? Sophia is 6. Miguel is 4. I couldn't speak. I just sat there listening to her cry. Rodney, please don't be mad. I was going to tell you. When? I don't know. I was scared. Scared of what? That you'd leave me. That you'd think I was lying to you. You were lying to me. No, I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Rodney, please. I love you. This doesn't change anything. Are you still legally married to Rico? Silence. Eleanor, answer me. Yes. I hung up. I sat in the parking lot of that grocery store for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at nothing. My phone rang 8 times. I didn't answer. Finally, I drove home. I walked into my apartment and sat on the couch. The same couch where Eleanor and I used to video chat every night. The same couch where I'd imagined our future together. I looked at the photos on my wall. Pictures from the wedding. Pictures of us at the beach. I'd printed them and framed them. I'd been so proud. My phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. Please talk to me. I can explain everything. I turned off my phone. I sat in the dark, and for the first time in 18 months, I let myself see the truth. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation we'd ever had, every promise, every I love you. At 6 a.m., I turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls from Eleanor. 26 text messages. I didn't read them. Instead, I opened Facebook. I typed in Rico de Vera, Philippines. A dozen profiles came up. I started clicking through them. On the 4th one, I found him. Rico de Vera. Lives in Camarines Sur. Works at a construction company. And his profile picture was a family photo. Him, Eleanor, and 2 kids. A little girl with Eleanor's eyes. A little boy with Rico's smile. I clicked on his profile. It was public. I scrolled through his photos. There were dozens of pictures of Eleanor. Eleanor cooking dinner. Eleanor at church. Eleanor holding the kids. The most recent photo was from 4 months ago. The caption read, Family Day at the beach. They were all smiling. They looked happy. I recognized the beach. It was the same beach where Eleanor and I had spent our honeymoon week. I felt bile rising in my throat. I kept scrolling. There were photos from birthdays, Christmas, random weekends. In every single one, Eleanor looked like a wife, like a mother, like someone who had a whole life I knew nothing about. I took screenshots of everything. Then I found Attorney Santos's number in my call history. I called him. Attorney Santos speaking. This is Rodney Fletcher. We spoke yesterday. Ah, Mr. Fletcher, I'm glad you called. Would you like to arrange a meeting? I want proof. I want to see their marriage certificate. Of course, I can email it to you right now. May I have your email address? I gave it to him. 5 minutes later, the email arrived. I opened the attachment. Marriage certificate. Republic of the Philippines. Bride, Eleanor Domingo. Groom, Rico de Vera. Date, the 15th of October 2017. There was a seal. Signatures. It looked real. Because it was real. Attorney Santos had also attached a photo of Eleanor's national ID. Marital status. Married. I stared at that word. Married. Our wedding in Naga City. The chapel. The priest. The vows. It was all fake. It couldn't have been legal. She was already married. I called Eleanor. This time she answered on the first ring. Rodney, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I saw the photos. What photos? Rico's Facebook. The 2 of you, your kids. She didn't say anything. When was the last time you saw him? I asked. It's complicated. When, Eleanor? A few months ago. How many months? I don't know. 3, maybe 4. There's a photo from 4 months ago. You're all at the beach. Rodney, please. The same beach where we spent our honeymoon. It's not like that. Then what is it like? She was crying now, full heaving sobs. I needed the money. I needed to get away from him. So you used me? No, I love you. I really do. You have a husband. You have kids. I don't want them. I want you. Did you ever plan to come to America? There was a long silence. I don't know. You don't know. I wanted to. I didn't know how to leave them. So what was I? A backup plan? A bank account? You're not being fair. I'm not being fair. I married you, Eleanor. I sent you thousands of dollars. I spent 18 months planning a life with you. I know, and you were with him the whole time. I wasn't with him. I was living in the same house. It's different. It's not different. She stopped crying. Her voice went cold. What do you want me to say, Rodney? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. But you need to understand my situation. I don't need to understand anything. I'm a mother. I have responsibilities. You should have told me that from the beginning. You wouldn't have married me if I did. And there it was, the truth. Simple and brutal. You're right, I said. I wouldn't have. So what now? Now nothing. We're done. Rodney, wait. But I'd already hung up. I spent the next 3 days going through my bank statements. I needed to see it. All of it. The numbers in black and white. I made a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, what she said it was for. The wedding. $3,000. Rent. $800 a month for 14 months. That's $11,200. Her mother's medication. $500 here. $800 there. Another $1,000. Total. $4,300. English classes. $300 a month for 6 months. $1,800. The new phone. $500. Visa application fees. $4,000 for the first lawyer. $4,500 for the second. Another $2,000 for the Philippine lawyer. The emergency money. $500 for her brother's tuition. $700 for her cousin's wedding. $1,000 for repairs on her mother's house. Another $500 for I don't even remember what. I added it all up. $22,300. I stared at that number. $22,300. That was a year's worth of my pension. That was a used car. That was a down payment on a decent condo. That was my savings. I opened my bank account online. Balance, $4,100. Before Eleanor, I'd had $26,000. I'd been saving for years, living simply, planning for the future, and I'd given almost all of it to a woman who already had a husband. I closed the laptop. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a whiskey. It was 11 a.m. I didn't care. I sat at my kitchen table and thought about all the nights I'd stayed up late, imagining our future. The house we'd buy, the trips we'd take, how I'd introduce her to my daughter, how we'd spend holidays together, how I'd finally have someone to grow old with. I thought about the video calls, her voice saying, "I love you," her smile when I told her I'd sent money, her tears when I proposed. How much of it was real? Any of it? I thought about Rico, his Facebook photos, the way he looked at her, the way she looked at the kids. They were a family. They'd always been a family. And I was just, what was I? A fool. An ATM. A lonely old man who'd been desperate enough to believe whatever he was told. I finished the whiskey and poured another. My phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. "Rodney, please, can we talk?" I deleted it. Another buzz. "I know you're hurt, but I do love you." Delete. Another. "I never meant to hurt you." Delete. I turned off my phone. I sat there in silence, staring at the wall, at the photos of us I still hadn't taken down, at the future I'd imagined that never existed, and I realized something. This wasn't just about the money. It was about what I'd given up to believe in her. My dignity, my judgment, my trust in my own instincts. I'd ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every voice that told me something was wrong, because I'd wanted so badly for it to be real. I'd wanted so badly to not be alone. I'd wanted so badly to matter to someone. And that desperation had cost me everything. I didn't cry. I just sat there, waiting for an apology that I knew would never come. I blocked Eleanor's number on Monday morning. I didn't think about it. I just did it. Then I went through Facebook and blocked her there too. I deleted every photo of us from my phone, every message, every video call recording. I packed up the printed photos in my apartment and put them in a box in my closet. I couldn't throw them away yet, but I couldn't look at them either. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my daughter, not my friends, not even Tom, who'd warned me months ago. I was too ashamed. How do you tell people you married a woman who was already married? How do you explain that you sent $22,000 to someone you'd only met in person twice? How do you admit you were that stupid? I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner alone. I watched TV. I went to bed. I did the same thing the next day. And the next, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left just the shell. A month passed. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I decided to check Facebook. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping for some kind of closure, some final proof that it really was over. I typed in Rico's name. His profile came up. The most recent post was from 2 days ago. It was a family photo. Rico, Eleanor, and the kids. They were at a restaurant. Everyone was smiling. The caption read, "Grateful for second chances." I stared at that photo. Eleanor was holding her daughter. She was wearing the same dress I'd bought her, the blue one with white flowers. She'd told me blue was her favorite color. In the photo, she looked happy, really happy, not fake happy, not I'm pretending for the camera happy. She looked like a woman who had everything she wanted. And then I understood. She'd never left Rico. Not really. Maybe they'd had problems. Maybe she'd needed money. Maybe she'd even convinced herself, for a little while, that she wanted a different life. But she'd always been with him. She'd always been part of that family. I was just a way to pay the bills, a temporary solution, a stupid American who'd believe anything. I closed the laptop. I sat there for a long time, and then I did something I should have done weeks ago. I let myself get angry. Not screaming angry, not throwing things angry, just cold, quiet anger that sat in my chest like a stone. I opened the laptop again. I looked at that family photo one more time. "You got what you wanted," I said out loud to the screen. "I hope it was worth it." Then I closed Facebook. I deleted the app from my phone. I took the box of photos from my closet and carried it to the dumpster behind my building. I threw it in. I didn't look back. When I got back to my apartment, it felt different. Emptier, but cleaner somehow. Like I'd finally gotten rid of something poisonous. I made myself dinner. I ate it slowly. I washed the dishes. I sat on the couch and turned on a basketball game. I didn't think about Eleanor. I didn't think about Rico. I didn't think about the money or the wedding or the lies. For the first time in months, I just existed. No hope, no fantasy, no future that didn't belong to me. Just me, alone in my apartment, watching a game I didn't care about. And it was enough. It had to be enough. It's been 6 months now. I still live in the same apartment. I still work part-time at the hardware store down the street. I still eat dinner alone most nights. But something's different. I'm different. I can't explain it exactly. I'm not healed. I don't think you ever really heal from something like this. But I'm awake. I see things I didn't see before. I was at the grocery store last week, and I saw an older guy, maybe 65, talking to a younger woman at the coffee shop inside. She was laughing at everything he said, touching his arm, looking at him like he was the most interesting person in the world. And I watched him lean in, completely captivated. I wanted to walk over and warn him. I wanted to say, "Be careful, ask questions, don't just believe everything she tells you." But I didn't, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she really does like him. Maybe not every story ends like mine. Or maybe he needs to learn the same lesson I did, the hard way. I think about Eleanor sometimes, not as much as I used to, but she still shows up in my thoughts. Usually late at night when I can't sleep. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. Probably not. I was just one chapter in her life. She was my whole story for 18 months. That's the difference. My daughter called me last month. We hadn't talked in a while. Hey, Dad, how are you? I'm okay. You sure? You sound different. I'm fine. Just tired. You're always tired. Are you taking care of yourself? I almost told her. Almost explained everything. But I couldn't. Yeah? I'm taking care of myself. Okay. Well, call me more often, all right? I worry about you. I will. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about what she said. I'm not taking care of myself. Not really. I'm just surviving. But maybe that's okay for now. I went to the bank yesterday. I wanted to see how much I'd saved since I stopped sending money to Eleanor. $2,300. It's not much, but it's mine. I'm thinking about taking a trip. Maybe the Grand Canyon, maybe Yellowstone. Somewhere I've always wanted to go but never had the time or money for. Somewhere alone, but by choice this time, not because I got left behind. Tom called me a few weeks ago. Rodney, man, I haven't heard from you in forever. I know, I'm sorry. You okay? I am now. Now? What does that mean? I told him everything. The wedding, the money, the husband, the kids, the lies. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Jesus, Rodney. I'm sorry. You warned me. I didn't want to be right. I know. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Move forward, I guess. You should get back out there. Start dating again. I laughed. I don't think so. Why not? I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore. Not everyone is like her. Maybe not. But I don't know how to tell the difference. Tom didn't have an answer for that. Neither do I. Sometimes I think about the man I was before Eleanor, before the wedding, before the lies. He was lonely, but he was whole. He had hope. He believed in second chances. He thought love could happen at any age. I'm not that man anymore. I don't know if I'll ever be him again. But I also don't know if I want to be. That man was naive. He ignored his gut. He made excuses for things that should have been deal breakers. He chose hope over truth. I won't make that mistake again. I can't. It cost me too much. But I've learned something. It's a hard lesson. The kind of lesson that sits in your bones and changes the way you see the world. I learned that loneliness makes you vulnerable. That desperation makes you blind. That some people will take everything you offer and still walk away. And that when someone shows you who they are, you have to believe them. The first time. I walk through my apartment now, and it doesn't feel as empty as it used to. I'm starting to get comfortable with the silence, with the space, with just being alone. Maybe that's growth. Maybe it's just acceptance. Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm here. I'm awake. And I'm not waiting for anyone to save me. Not anymore.